fellow travelers, and welcome to another episode of Vertice Stars Podcast 4th season. How my loyal listeners, thank you for continued support. Enjoy this amazing interview because Joseph Illidge returns to the mothership to talk Bloodletter from the Spawn universe. Now, come on board as we go traversing the stars. Hi, Mr. Illidge. Thank you for the Vertice Stars Podcast.
Thank you for having me again.
It's always a pleasure. I really enjoyed our last conversation, so it's going to be cool now to talk about Bloodletter, which you're now writing for the Todd McFarlane Spawn universe. And somebody who's been writing for many different, you've written for, let's say, DC, the Big Two. You're now writing for Spawn's universe. How is writing for the Spawn universe different than writing for DC and Marvel?
Wow, that's a big question. So first off, I'm co-writing this with Tim Seeley. He's a good friend, amazing writer, and congratulations to him on his revival show that is now out with Sci-Fi based on his popular Image comic. So, the Spawn universe that Todd McFarlane built and really had shaped over the last, almost 3 decades, right? With so many creators that he's brought to the table. It's a combination of horror and fantasy and espionage, right? But it's not a place where I would say justice is commonplace, right? So when you look at Marvel and DC, Marvel is owned by Disney. DC is owned by Warner Brothers Discovery. It gives their superheroic universes certain conditions, right? One of those conditions being that justice has to win out more than injustice does. And Todd McFarlane's Spawn universe is a pretty scary place where terrible people and terrible deities get away with a lot on humanity, and humanity gets away with a lot on itself, right? And so with Bloodletter, which is basically about a mystical mercenary named Tasha Thornwall, who has basically been living in the shadows for 10 years and is now coming out. Well, she's coming out because she wants to kill Spawn. And why she wants to kill him goes back to 10 years ago when Spawn was Al Simmons, and he was basically like the John Wick of the CIA. He's the guy that you sent in to lay waste, kill everybody, clean it up. There is no stopping him. He's a sum of all fears in flesh and bone. And on one of his missions for Scorched Earth, he came across a CIA operation, and Tasha Thornwall was a part of the team. Al Simmons wiped her whole team out. She barely got away alive. But what he did was he exposed her identity, and so she had to go underground because now she was in danger. And so she's been living underground for 10 years. And what happened was in Spawn 294, Spawn revealed himself to the world as Al Simmons. He took off his mask and he said, my name is Al Simmons. I'm here to save your souls. And Tasha sees that and she's triggered, right? It's a trauma trigger because what Al Simmons did to her traumatized her, right? And so when she sees he's alive, that's it. It's like, I'm going to wipe this dude out. And now that she's a mystic, she thinks she can do it. She thinks she can kill him. And that's it. So Bloodletter becomes a really intense revenge story in the Spawn universe, right? And so that's it. It's like you got to get crazier in ways that you can't in Marvel and DC, right? Just by the nature of the corporate ownership of their superhero universes and what that requires for their intellectual properties. And I say that as someone who worked on Batman, right? And Batman is a character that's kind of like, okay, if there's a superhero that you can kind of push, it's Batman. If there are places Batman can't go, that you can go into Spawn.
Now, what do you think about the Spawn universe? And let's look from a standpoint, the way the universe is so dark, this is almost a pessimistic view of heroism, because everyone is somewhat morally gray.
Right.
could a character, not from a point of view of strength, but from a point of view of morality, like Spider-Man or Superman, could they save their own morality, as it were, within a universe like Spawn?
Okay, so that's a great question. So you got to know you're talking to one of the biggest Peter Parker Spider-Man fans alive.
Okay.
So Peter Parker could protect his morality.
Okay.
Peter Parker would have to be the beacon in that universe,
Hmm.
right? A number of other heroes would adjust to survive, right? And to your point about, heroism not being majorly black and white in the Spawn universe, but morally gray, I would say that's an accurate reflection of humanity in general,
Hmm.
right? I feel like good and bad are these absolutes that we feel very comfortable with, but most of humanity resides in between those two poles, right? And so in that way, I feel like the Spawn universe is a more accurate reflection of the gradients of humanity
Hmm.
than the Marvel and the DC universe are.
'Cause I think a lot of the characters would morally collapse within the Spawn. Like I'm thinking, like I'm a huge Green Lantern fan, but Green Lantern's basically
It's so funny. I thought you were going to bring up Green Lantern. Which Green? Are we
right.
talking Hal Jordan?
I think Hal Jordan, because when you think of Hal Jordan, I think a space cop. I could easily
Yeah.
see his morals getting corrupted very quickly within a Spawn universe mindset. Um,
That's interesting, especially because he went through the parallax
right.
experience. That's interesting. This is what I will tell you though. So, it's interesting. The Green Lanterns operate off of science, right?
Mm.
Because if I remember the mythology correctly, it used to be based off of sorcery, but the
Yep.
Guardians of the Universe extracted the sorcery out of it. So now it's science,
Right.
right? Science heroes would probably get decimated in the Spawn universe because the Spawn universe is a mystical universe,
Mm. Okay.
and mysticism trumps science,
Interesting.
right?
Okay.
Magic is even one of Superman's only weaknesses,
Right.
right? So science heroes beware.
See,
just
I,
just give it to you straight.
I'm trying to think, is there a science-based Spawn character, primary Spawn character like an Iron Man or Green or something like that? I'm not sure there is one that's dominating that's had much of a role other than just some villains, I think, but I don't think there's been a hero that's been tech-based.
Yeah, not that I can immediately think of. I feel like, the closest would be like, when Al Simmons was a CIA agent, that was science based.
Mm,
But once you come into this ecosystem and its rules, like you got to have some mysticism, or you have to be one of the most ruthless human beings on the face of the earth. Like you have to have knowledge,
yeah,
right? So think about John Constantine
yeah,
and his relationship to the DC universe, right?
yeah,
And how whenever he walks into the DC universe, it warps it,
yeah,
right? The mechanics of the DC universe don't know what to do with John Constantine.
yeah,
You see what I'm saying? So that's how it is, right? That's why science could not persevere. And to your point, Todd did not build it on a science foundation. He built it on
right.
a mysticism foundation. So, yeah, I really feel like this world would make you adapt, like Batman would adapt.
Really, I think Batman. I think this word would break Batman because
That's
so
interesting.
often the innocent or the idea of justice. I think this universe would allow Batman to do, I think, what he deep down part of him really wants to do, which is let loose completely and not and break through and
Mm-hmm.
not worry about the constraints of morality, which
Mm-hmm.
is a part of him that wants to do that badly. And I think this universe would give him the opportunity, especially when he realizes heaven, hell, all that is pretty much the same in many ways. That there isn't that cosmic justice concept, and I think that idea would break him, and I think he
That's
could very
interesting.
well turn over.
I will immediately say that not all of the Bat family can handle it.
Mm,
Right. Like some of them are dust.
right.
Right. If I think about, and I say this from my time, I feel like Cassandra Cain, Batgirl, could handle herself better than Tim Drake.
Okay, I can see that.
You see what I'm saying? Right. So I feel like the deep down warriors that already have the dark side in their nucleus, they could handle it better. Now, when we talk about Bruce, he's interesting, and he's interesting because there's a paradox within the intellectual property of Batman. Batman, the comic book character, does not kill.
Right.
His father was a doctor. His mother was a social worker. He believes life is sacred. He doesn't kill. The cinematic universe, Batman and all the multiple Batmans, they have different rules on this. So this is what I would say. I would say the Zack Snyder Batman would have the best chance, I think, of adapting, right? Like
Okay.
he would have the fastest adaptation cycle. Whereas I feel like the Batman that James Gunn is promising us with DC Studios would have the longest curve.
Okay.
You
Well,
know,
and what would be and why is that, do you think?
because as far as I could tell, and I say this as one of those few crazy people who has not seen Superman
I've
yet
not seen it
as
yet
of
either,
this viewing,
unfortunately.
but it seems like Gunn is going to give us the quintessential superheroic Batman,
Yeah.
and that guy has not yet come across what I would call deep level mysticism, maybe cursory mysticism with like Felix Faust and people like that.
Yeah.
But like the John Constantine flavor of mysticism, no freaking way. Not the Vertigo 150 issue Hellblazer mysticism, no freaking way. So he would have the longest curve. And bringing it back to the front, it's interesting because Spawn. So, in addition to Spider-Man, we know that Todd McFarlane did a seminal run on Batman, Batman Year 2,
Mm.
right? So, when you think about Spawn, I feel like Batman is definitely in the DNA of him, right?
Mm.
But to your point, there's this line Batman won't cross, like Spawn crosses it. Like
Yeah.
in Spawn number 5, Spawn killed an ice cream man serial killer,
Yeah.
and not in a kind manner, by the way. You see what I'm saying? So Spawn believes in proportionate justice, right? Like,
Yeah.
as you inflict, so shall I inflict on you, right? And when the scorecard is equal, we're done here, but not before, right? So now Tasha Thornwall, the Bloodletter, she feels exactly the same way. She's like, I am only going to deliver proportionate justice, right? Like, you destroyed the person that I was, I'm going to destroy the thing that you are,
Mm.
right?
Now, now when you're thinking about as well as Bloodletter, can she be described as a hero? She's definitely a protagonist, but can she be here? Because on the one hand, she is trying to go after, get revenge on the one who did try to hurt her, who destroyed her life, then tried to destroy her life. She does seem to do in the first issue a few things that can be viewed as positive, heroic. Saving some people, helping some people's lives. But there does seem to be underlying motive for having done so. Is she underlying heroic? Is she someone who once she got past let's say she was able to complete her mission? I haven't only read the first issue, obviously. She defeats Al Simmons. Is there a path for her that she's a hero, or being that she started as a mercenary, she's always at some point a self-absorbed protagonist?
Interesting. So, Tasha started off as a patriot. She was a member of the Central Intelligence Agency. She believed in an idea greater than herself. And because the intelligence agency betrayed her in the form of Al Simmons, who was also an operative of the government, that was a major recalibration for her, in which she learned that to survive, she could have no allegiance to organizations and things like that, because ultimately, for them, she's a thing. She's not a person.
Mm.
These organizations have no compassion. They have no morality. They have an ideology, but that ideology is not a humane ideology, right? It's
Mm.
not an ethical ideology. It's a business ideology. It's a it's an ideology of anything is justifiable for the goal, right? So she's a mercenary and she has her own ethos. Whether she's a hero or a villain, I will say this. I think those are easy terms. I think anti-hero is an easy term. One of the things that, I love that Tim and I did with Bloodletter is you're going to be asking yourself that question every issue.
Mm.
Is Tasha a hero or is she an anti-hero or is she the villain who thinks she's the hero? Right? You know what I mean? Because everyone is the hero of their own story. No one's looking in the mirror and saying, you know what? I'm the bad person. Right? That's not commonplace. Yeah.
Right.
So the answer is not easy. Gun to my head, I have to answer it. Tasha's a hero, but she doesn't even realize she is, and she may not want to be. Because
Mm.
being a hero means you have to be vulnerable to a degree because you have to be selfless. And she has been cut too much to be selfless once again, or at least not immediately.
Mm.
So that's the answer that I can provide. But I feel like as you read this issue through issue, sometimes scene through scene, your opinion may change.
Mm.
And that's cool, right? Because number one is readers, and the comic book reading public, it's sophisticated taste. I don't think they want the easy answers. I think they want to question it. I think they want a character with some layers. I think they want to be surprised now and again. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, and
that's it.
when you say I think when you said issue 294, Al Simmons reveals who he is to the world.
Mhm.
And you said I'm here to save your souls. Bloodletter or Tasha sees that video, right? She sees the video. Does she understand really what Al Simmons is at this point, or does she just know that Al Simmons is not dead yet?
So she's definitely heard of Spawn, and she's heard of Hellspawn, but she didn't know that he was Spawn.
Yeah.
She thought he was dead, like most people thought Al Simmons is this military hero who died 5 to 7 years ago because in the Spawn universe, everything we know about Spawn from Spawn 1 to the present is 10 years or 7 years, right? So she knows what he is, but she didn't know that he was that,
Mm.
right? So not knowing that he's that guy, that's a problem. And the thing about revenge, or at least it's something that we really dig in revenge stories, is once you are on a path of revenge, you're not going to allow anything to prevent you from getting what you want,
Mm.
right? So the question becomes, how far is Tasha Thornwell willing to go to kill someone?
Mm.
What happens when they fight? And they are going to fight very soon. And what happens after that?
Mm.
Right? But so this is it's a story about someone who's been traumatized, someone who has a hole that's deep and they're trying to fill it.
Mm.
And she's not going to be able to fill it. That's the tragedy, right? But that's part of, again, that's part of the story of her. Um, and the Spawn universe is a universe of tragedy, right? Most people don't win.
Mm.
Most good people don't win.
Now, and when you think about Al Simmons, he is a character for everyone who's read Spawn who has defeated devils, has defeated gods, is so immensely powerful that even in DC or Marvel against their big guys, he probably could win. I mean, at the level what he's fighting. Bloodletter, Tasha, human, mystic human now, but a human. Is she being naive? Is it desperation that she thinks she can take this guy? Is it a same proposition to take on Spawn? And I'm assuming this is Spawn when he has his powers back, not Spawn during the time where he
100%.
lost
It's
power.
powered Spawn. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think there's a number of things. So number one, Tasha believes that you can kill anything,
Mm,
right? You need the right tools, you need the methodology, and you need the opportunity.
mm,
But you can kill anything. So that's one. So Spawn is a thing that she wants to kill,
mm,
right? Two, Spawn is immensely powerful, but if Spawn was all powerful, there would be no Spawn comic
mm.
because no one could hurt him, right? He'd be all powerful. He's Spawn, right? He's so, when we think about him, there is a vocabulary of abilities, but he can still very much be hurt. That's something that's been established for years. So she has a plan, a very specific plan. Now, what's going to happen when the plan gets executed? That's a whole other thing because, as you know, man plans and God laughs, right?
Mm.
So let's see what happens with the plan. But she's got one, and she's going to do what it takes to execute it.
And having been a reader of Spawn for a long time, Spawn, for the most part, attempts to do good things. He's trying to help people, seemingly.
Right?
Is Tasha blind to that aspect? Does she not see it, not know it, or doesn't care?
Yet doesn't care because here's the thing, right? So traumatized individuals are not interested in the redemption of the people who hurt them,
Okay.
right? And something that my wife told me, and I truly believe this about human psychology, is that past, present, and future are same. So
Okay.
to Tasha, Al Simmons is that Al Simmons,
Okay.
not this one. She's not interested in doing research and seeing, oh, this dude like saved like 500 lives in this place, and oh, saved us from this war between heaven and hell. Well, I'm gonna just let it go. Like that's not the vocabulary of the traumatized.
Okay.
Yeah. So she's not interested in a dialogue or a collection of information that puts Spawn in a redemptive light,
Hmm.
right? She's just like, nah, like you must pay for what you did. You don't get to do what you did and then go on global TV and talking about you want to save souls. You? No, no. She won't live in a world and allow that to pass. You see what
Hmm.
I'm saying? So that's it.
So, my understanding having read the issue, Bloodletter's powers works. She she etches or somebody has puts these spells into her body onto her body. How destructive is that to her person, to her soul, as it were, to her eternity to be doing that to her body?
So Tasha has a very high pain threshold. Again, she was a CIA agent.
Hmm.
She's been through 10 years of things that you cannot imagine. So her pain threshold is high, right? The spells that are created or the gateways to power that are created through the scarring on her body, the tattoos, those are actually to protect her,
Hmm.
right? Those are to decrease her physical vulnerability. It doesn't increase it, right? Emotionally, emotionally, she's just going deeper into a hole,
Hmm.
right? But also emotionally, she wants to be invulnerable. She's trying to protect herself from every conceivable human threat she doesn't care about. Like you're a person with a gun? I can deal with you. Right? It's the it's the Malabolgia. That's who I have to be concerned about, right?
Hmm.
So she's trying to protect herself from the higher order threats. The mundane threat, she's got that.
Now, as a writer, one thing that I always find that is difficult when dealing with magic and the mystical is determining limits that that a reader can kind of grasp.
Yes.
Because for sort of like I always call it this in my head is always like the Doctor Strange problem, where a super villain to make this stuff happen. I'm drowning. I'll create the superpower of breathing underwater. Whatever. Is there is it difficult to determine what the limits are when dealing with mystical powers?
Well, I think in the Spawn universe, I feel like there's a clarity to the mystical powers. Now, you mentioned Doctor Strange. I like Doctor Strange, but Doctor Strange has two basic weaknesses. Not weaknesses, I'll call them limitations. One is technically every time Doctor Strange utilizes mystical energy, he's asking permission for a deity,
Mm.
right? Most people forgot that. I forgot which writer dug into this years ago, but a writer said, Doctor Strange could make a request and it could be denied. And he would be in a situation where he could have really used that thing, but it's not being given him, from the crimson bands of Cyttorak. Well, what if Cyttorak doesn't want to help you to?
Mm.
You've got a problem. So that's limitation number one. Limitation number two is Doctor Strange is a brilliant doctor, but in general, he's not that bright. He just allowed Victor Von Doom to become Sorcerer Supreme. He got tricked by Victor Von Doom, and he's the Sorcerer Supreme of planet Earth. Planet Earth, that is so important that an Illuminati had to be created to protect it from all universal threats. Stephen Strange isn't that bright. Okay, so those are his two biggest limitations, right? Tasha's limitations are clear in that it involves spells, right? But, magic involves formulas. And something that I learned years ago as a teenager or a preteen watching the popular Dungeons and Dragons cartoon of the 80s, is that there's cause and effect, right? So for you to get something, what does that take away from something else? What does that take away from you? What does it cost you to get the thing? Right? So it's the causality of magic that I feel like is very clear in Spawn's universe and is very clear with the Bloodletter.
Does Was he talking about magic and mysticism, things in the nature? Um, I kind of feel like Spawn's draw of power and even something like the Redeemer from Heavens, when we talk about their magic, is a different concept of magic than Bloodletter magic. Am I understanding that as for like mystic magic? Am I understanding that correctly or no?
So to a degree, when you're talking about the scorched characters, right? You're
Yeah.
talking about Redeemer, medieval Spawn, She Spawn, maybe Gunslinger, maybe Haunt. I feel like there's a way in which they're all derived from the core magic of Spawn. And in that way, no matter what the variations of manifestation are, they're still like the source bottle that is Spawn. So it's still subject to the rules of the source bottle, right?
Okay.
Um, and it's very interesting that you mentioned Redeemer. You're going to be seeing him very soon.
That's very cool. Another character that's very interesting that I'm curious about because once again it's only the first issue, Casper.
Yes.
Can you kind of dive into her connection with Tasha? And I kind of feel like there's more. It feels like a lot is hinted about who this character is. Is there anything you can shed light on, or beyond? Obviously, don't want to spoil it too much. But what can you reveal about her and her connection to Tasha?
So Casper is the only friend that Tasha has in the world. And basically, Casper is to Tasha Thornwall what Oracle was to Black Canary before they met, right? Kind of like this is the person in the room with the information, processing, gathering that so that you can have it while you're out in the field, right? Delivering you information in real time, doing research, collating, coalescing, right? Um, Casper does have some knowledge of heavenly matters and the language of angels. Why will be revealed in Bloodletter 3.
Okay.
Okay. Um, Tasha and Casper's relationship is going to go through some interesting fluctuations in this story. And you'll see that and you'll see why. Um, but I really have an affection for the character. She initially came out of Tim's head, And then we really shaped her and made her something very cool. And when you're talking Birds of Prey dynamic, I love the Birds of Prey. I edited Birds of Prey back in the day. Dinah and Babs are some of my favorite heroes. So being able to bring a Birds of Prey dynamic to the Spawn universe is just like a bonus.
And I mean, it's clear why Tasha is driven by that revenge, right? As you mentioned,
Yeah.
what Allison has did to her life.
Yeah.
Is Casper then driven by a similar sense of revenge? Is she driven by just helping Tasha? Why does she? Why is this mission important to her?
Read Bloodletter 3.
Okay.
That's what I'm telling you. Read Bloodletter 3. But also, so let's just think about friendship, right? So I told you Casper's Tasha's only friend, right? Friends are loyal to their friends,
Yeah.
right? If you've been done wrong and you want revenge, I'm your friend, I'm going to support you. But the specificity of the answer is revealed in Bloodletter 3.
Because is Casper? I mean, part of me is thinking Casper obviously seems like a good friend to Tasha, right? But
Right.
as a friend, you see the hole Tasha's jumping into and falling through.
Yeah.
Is she doing? How does she feel about? Once again, talking about morality, the morality of helping Tasha go deeper into that hole.
Read Bloodletter 5.
Okay.
You're asking some questions. I can't quite answer them yet.
Okay.
Read Bloodletter 5.
All
But
right.
it's an excellent question. I just can't answer it right.
Okay. Another thing about the Spawn universe that's similar to DC and Marvel, but I think is more um, clear in Spawn is that Spawn feels like a tighter universe than DC and Marvel.
Yeah.
Maybe because it's a little smaller of a universe that everything feels way more interconnected. All the universe feels because that interconnectivity more tangible in some way because everything is so tight.
Hmm.
Um, does Bloodletter have a role outside her comic book within the larger universe? Is that a discussion that you had to have with Todd about how she fits into a larger universe? And is this a miniseries to exist on its own, or is this a character that truly is going to exist within the Spawn universe?
Right. So, you know, Tim and I had discussions with Todd and discussions with Thomas Healy, who's the editor in chief of McFarlane Productions, thus editor in chief of the Spawnverse. And Tasha is definitely intended to have a life past the first Bloodletter arc, and we've talked about crossovers and things like that. When Tim and I got the assignment, one of the things I did was I spoke to friends of mine who are working in the Spawn universe. So John Layman and I go back 26 years, I think. Erica Schultz and I may go back 10 years. John Layman's writer of The Scorched. Erica Schultz writes Rat City. Jimmy Palmiotti, I've known all of my career in comics. He's writing Gunslinger Spawn, I believe, or Tales of the Gunslinger Spawn, which is perfect for him, by the way. And so it was important to be cognizant of what's going on and how they handle the characters. And, I would call one of them and say, hey, this is what we're thinking of doing with this character in the book. Does this mesh with your portrayal, your understanding of the character? And we'll have these conversations. I will say there is some room to be flexible,
Mm.
right? And I think that's the way it is with any universe of characters where like you have to allow some flexibility or the rigidity of it is just going to choke the
Mm.
characters and their characterization. So there is a little flexibility, but what Tim and I wanted to do with other Spawn Universe characters who you will see in Bloodletter is we wanted to remain faithful to their core.
Mm.
Whatever the core traits of the character are, that's what we wanted to remain faithful to.
Now, when you're writing Bloodletter, and you think
Mhm.
about, like, say, bringing a character like Redeemer, Spawn, some of these other characters, especially from the Scorches, things of that nature, are you thinking about it from writing the character, or are you writing the character through the perspective of Tasha?
Yeah, great question. Both. I am thinking about it. Tim and I are thinking about it from the perspective of, okay, what's this character's basic deal in terms of powers,
Yeah.
in terms of perspective, and in terms of how they operate? But part of it is Tasha's perspective on them if they are part of an equation for her mission.
Hmm.
Because then she's going back to her CIA roots, right? And she's dealing with threat analysis and assessment and surveillance and intentional acts,
Hmm.
right? So there's a lot to think about from her perspective if she's going to interact with any of like the scorched,
Hmm.
right?
Now, when you think Bloodletter, is an 8-issue miniseries or
It's presently a 5-issue miniseries,
five?
but listen, if it really takes off, if the fans love it, if the Spawn fans like yourself demand more and the sales show it, I see no reason why it won't continue. But what Tim and I wanted to do was really create a 5-issue story that's a complete story that closes the door of the main story and themes, but like opens possibilities into the Spawn universe so that if this is it, the readers got a full experience. And if this is not it, then they got the first chapter of what is Tasha's macro
Hmm.
story. And as a writer, I think you have to think that way. I think you have to think, okay, this character has a macro story, and the first chapter is the micro story,
Hmm.
right? So that's it. So it allows for that kind of flexibility.
So, what can you tease about the next 4 issues? I give away spoilers. We can give us a couple of spoilers.
Okay.
What can you tease about the next 4 issues that are going to come
Okay.
out?
Issue 2 will have the Scorched.
Okay.
Issue 3 will tell you what the deal is with Casper. Issue 4 is when Tasha fights Spawn. And issue 5 is the consequences of that. And it's about how other people in the world are trying to navigate through the world,
Hmm.
right? So the story from Bloodletter 1 to 4 is very Tasha centric and mission centric. The fifth one is going to kind of pull back a bit and
Hmm.
have Tasha interact with more people in this twisted world, like the humans, right? So it's like, you and I live in a somewhat normal world, so we entertain ourselves through the rules of that somewhat normal world. Well, how do people entertain themselves in the Spawn universe?
Hmm.
What are their goals? How are they trying to achieve them? So we're going to get a little bit of a wider picture in issue 5.
I really enjoy when the first issue of Bloodletter. The second issue comes out. It has to be soon, right? I know it comes out
Yeah, the second issue comes out July 23rd,
23rd.
which is
Okay.
the day before San Diego Comic-Con begins. And Tim Seeley and I will be doing a signing. Um, I believe it's Friday from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock. Now, this is a specific time because it's San Diego at the Todd McFarlane Productions booth. So we'll be doing a signing for Bloodletter, and issue 2 will be out by that time.
Very cool, Mr. Illich. It's a total pleasure to talk with you. I look forward to seeing Bloodletter number 2. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and always a pleasure to talk to a Spawn fan. So it's like,
Indeed.
okay, if it passes muster by the Spawn fans, then we're doing our job right.
It totally does. I think she's a great inclusion to the universe because so many of the characters have a similarity to themselves. She feels definitely unique within that verse. I think it helps to have some nice fresh blood, as it were, for the pun intended, for the character.
Thank you so much. That was definitely the intention that she would add something, that she would be additive instead of being redundant.
Right, right.
So thank you so much. I'm glad she comes across.
Thank you so much. Have a great night, sir.
Okay, you too.